Hi everyone, this is 2026 Mentorship Program Lecture 14. And in this lecture, I will be showing you guys my personal trade plan, which we talked about in the previous lecture. I told you guys I will show you how I decide on my bias. What are the key questions I do ask myself before actually deciding on a specific bias that I'm trading to. Now, I try to make this lecture a little bit easy to understand. So, going through the whole trade plan is kind of complicated because there are some few ticks that are added to my trade plan based on my own personal preference. So I brought it down to a few questions that if you have an answer to those questions, you have a bias. Those are the key questions I expect you guys to ask yourself when you are deciding on a bias you want to trade to. So in this lecture, we're going to go through those questions and I'll try to explain it more better so that you can easily apply my own personal trade plan and how you can use it correctly and learn how to execute with it. So, the questions we're going to talk about, the first is what is the weekly bias? I'm talking about the higher time frame. Before looking at the lower time frame on my trade plan, I must look at the higher time frame. And the highest time frame I do look at is the weekly time frame. I need to determine what is the weekly bias. This will tell me what is the trend. I need to know what is the current trend on the weekly time frame and what I'm going to be anticipating going in the week. Is it I'm going to anticipate any higher prices or I'm going to anticipate a lower prices or I'm going to wait. So there's a clear bias for me to take advantage of. Next is what is the weekly draw on liquidity? This will help me in answering the question of my target. Where am I anticipating the week to trade to? What is the target on a weekly perspective that I'm anticipating the weekly time frame to trade to? This gives me an overall target on where I'm looking at price to trade to. What is the draw on the liquidity? So you need to answer this question before moving to the next step. You need to know your draw on liquidity on a weekly time frame. Next is what is the daily bias? It is very important because you need to know the daily bias. And in most cases, the daily bias is not all time correlated with the weekly bias, or you can say aligned with the weekly bias. So you need to know a specific rules in which you use to determine each time frame bias. What are the rules you use to understand what is the trend in every individual time frame? So you need to know what is the daily bias. Now, what is the daily draw on liquidity? What's the daily time frame trading to? What is the point of interest attracting price that the daily bias is most likely to draw to? This will give you the daily target. Because in most cases, a weekly targets in some cases do take weeks before price actually trades to the draw on liquidity. And the daily time frame will help you in the timing on when price is going to trade to that draw on liquidity. So you need to understand the daily draw on liquidity to know if the draw on liquidity is at the same perspective in price trading to the weekly draw on liquidity. Those are good timing to anticipate price to trade to the weekly draw on liquidity. And that brings us to the next question, which is the daily aligned with the weekly? If not, wait for the alignment. This is this is a very easy question. If the daily bias is aligned with the weekly draw on liquidity, so if the daily draw on liquidity is aligned with the weekly draw on liquidity, and the daily bias is aligned with the weekly bias, those are the times that you take advantage, or those are the times you move to the lower time frame. And those are the times you move to the next step. So wait for those alignments. If there isn't any alignment, you wait for the alignment. This applies to day traders. This applies to swing traders. This applies to weekly trend traders. Those are trying to catch the expansion, which is one of the main trade plan I'm currently using in the 2026 mentorship program. How to trade the weekly expansion. We're trying to catch the weekly expansion of every individual week. So when the daily and the weekly is aligned, those are the times you anticipate price to trade to the weekly draw on liquidity. Those will help you in your timing on when the weekly is actually ready to expand. Those will help you to filter out the bad trades. It will help you in a high perspective in whatever bias you're looking at, help you with your accuracy in price to prep up your probability on anticipating the next draw on liquidity. Because you need both time frame to be aligned before actually looking for a setup. So if there isn't any alignment within both time frame, you aren't taking any trade. What is the 4 hour and the 1 hour time frame trend? Now these are the times where you move to the lower time frame to look for those key moments to align with the section. Now those are for day traders. So what is the 4 hour trend? What is the 1 hour trend? It's very important for you to understand if those trends are aligned with whatever bias you're trading to. So know the trend is very important. And is the 4 hour or the 1 hour aligned with the daily draw on liquidity? Now, the reason I say 4 hour or 1 hour, because either can be aligned and you can still take advantage of the setup. If the 4 hour is aligned, you look for higher prices or lower prices. If the 1 hour is aligned, you look for higher prices or lower prices. The point is that you want to see the alignment between both time frame. Now, I didn't move lower to day traders. I kept it at this area because this is my own personal plan that I made it as simple and as best as I can so that you guys can understand it in a question form. So whenever the 4 hour or the 1 hour is aligned with the daily draw on liquidity in a trend perspective, those are the times I look for my entries. Now, if you're a day trader and the 1 hour is aligned or the 4 hour is aligned with the daily draw on liquidity, whenever price trades to a discount or a premium 1 hour points of interest, those are the times you look for your lower time frame entry. Now, I've talked about it in previous lectures. If you have gone through the 2025 lectures, and for those that have gone through 2025 lecture, know that I've talked through that perspective in price on how to move to a lower time frame, like the 15 minutes and the 5 minutes, to take advantage of those sections trade. You need to see those alignments in price, learn how to take advantage of the alignments, and you need your higher time frame to give you a broader perspective on where price is actually trading to. When every piece is aligned and you take advantage of that setup, that is a high probability setup, and you are only filtering out the high probability setup. You need everything to be in alignment before actually taking any trade. So looking at this trade plan, you know that I have to be patient for me to even take any trade in whatever currency I choose in trading because I need to see an alignment between the weekly and the daily, and I need to wait for another alignment between the daily and the 4 hour or the 1 hour time frame. So you can see this will help you in understanding that I don't trade every day. I can even say I don't even trade every week. There are some weeks I don't even take any trade. And those weeks I spend most of my time studying price, looking at what price is doing, looking at what I was anticipating in price. If what I was anticipating was wrong or price was currently trading against my initial idea, I look at what price is currently doing to see if I can align myself, if there's any adjustment I need to make from my trade plan on the weekly perspective. So just like what I do in most week that I don't take advantage of trade, but whenever price is trading to my idea, I do take advantage of it, which I've shown you guys lots of trades that I've taken advantage of in the market reviews, which in those market reviews, I talked about how I took advantage of the setup. I told you trades that I took a loss on. I basically show you guys my whole trade setup using that specific trade plan. Now I know that I most time doesn't go lower to the 5 minutes and the 15 minutes. Now the reason is that I'm trying to keep most of the video within a time range. But at the same time, I've talked about every individual perspective or every individual component to trade a London section, a New York section in the 2025 mentorship program. Which before getting into this lecture, I talked about this in the first lecture that if you want to take advantage of the 2026 lecture, make sure you have gone through the 2025 lecture and you understand what I talked about on the 2025 lecture. Because I talked about most of the key principles that I'm using in the 2026 lecture. So when you understand it and you have your trade plan or you're already decided on what type of trade you're ready to take advantage of, if it's going to be a day trade or an inter-week trade or an intraday trade, whatever trade you do choose after going through the 2025 mentorship program, the 2026 mentorship program is to show you how I do implement those trade plan. So far we have gone through a few lectures and I've shown you guys how to do it correctly, which we'll be doing this throughout the whole year, throughout 2026. It's left for you guys to do the study on how price is trading. Make sure you journal your studies, journal your trades, have a key reasons on why you're actually taking a trade, have a simple trade plan like mine, which you can see this is like a checklist, a very simple checklist. When I have a weekly bias, I checked it that I have a weekly bias. When there's a weekly draw on liquidity, I checked it that I have a weekly draw on liquidity. Then I asked myself, what is the daily bias? If there is a daily bias, I checked it. Now, whatever point there isn't any clear perspective on whatever I'm looking for or whatever question I'm trying to answer in my checklist, I wait till I can understand what price is actually doing. So those are the times where I normally doesn't take any trade till I can see more price action to understand more on what price is currently doing. So make sure you go through the checklist and try to implement it, understand how to use it correctly. And that is it for this lecture because the main reason of this lecture is to show you guys a very simple and easy to copy trade plan, which is what I actually did. I made it a question that you can easily ask yourself the question and you can easily answer the question by making it a checklist. So make sure you make this a checklist and at every beginning of every week, make sure you answer the questions before actually taking any trade in that week. So that is it for this lecture. See you guys in the next lecture.